Alright, hey everyone out there in Banjo land, Mike Heading here. I've got a little mini banjo lesson for you today. I had a request from people in the audience to basically do a lesson on how do you play a song that you've never heard before. So you've been going to jam sessions, which is awesome, and if you've been to a jam session or to a band rehearsal, chances are you're going to get a song thrown at you that you've never heard before. People are immediately going to look to you to take a banjo or mandolin or guitar break or whatever it is, and it can be very intimidating, basically having to play a song on the fly. So basically what this lesson is going to do is I'm going to break down my process of learning a new song into 6 steps that you can follow. And obviously starting from not knowing the song at all to the most advanced would be playing the complete melody with the rhythm to the song. And obviously you can't get all the way to the end without following the steps. So I'm going to break this down into 6 steps to basically figure out what we can do when we're in a new jam session and we need to learn a new song on the fly. Alright, here's the lesson. Let's start breaking down the process of learning a new song. And remember, when you're learning any new song, whether you're in a jam session or you're rehearsing with a band that you want to play in, you always want to remember how much time you have to learn the song, because that can change drastically. You know, you might walk into a jam session and they're already playing a song and you basically have to jump in real time. So in that instance, you have almost no time to learn the song. Whereas if you're playing in more of a band, or you're playing with some people you jam with regularly, you might have a few hours to learn the song, or even a few weeks. You might be able to go home and work on it. So first thing I'm going to do when I'm learning a new song, I'm going to try and determine the key of the song and the basic count of the song. So how do we do that? The easiest way is, first, you could just ask someone in the jam session, hey, what key is this song in? So 99.9% of the time, people are going to tell you what key the song is in. They're going to want you playing in the right key. So that's a very easy way. Just ask the person next to you, hey, what key is this song in? Once you know what key the song is in, even if you don't know any of the other chords, you could kind of hang out on the home chord, so the chord that the key is in, and you're going to be more or less safe. So let's say, for example, since we're tuned to G, let's say our song is in the key of G, and it has a couple other chords, but I haven't been able to determine those yet since I'm just learning the song. So I might just strum on G or very quietly roll on G, because the chord G, if the song is in the key of G, is going to be the safest chord of all. So that's always my go-to, is stay on the chord that of the key that the song is in. So if you haven't learned any of the other chords, stay on the chord of the key the song is in. So in this case, it'd be G. The other thing we're going to want to do is think about the count of the song. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So most songs are going to be in 4/4 time. So that's always my go-to starting point, is start by trying to count to 4. Some songs will be in 3/4, but most times it's going to be 4/4. So you always want to start with 4/4, especially if you're learning a song you don't know, because chances are it's probably going to be in 4/4. So a couple ways you can practice this is, let's say you're driving in your car and you're listening to music. Start practicing counting along. The faster you can cue into that count, the faster you're going to be able to play along with the song. So a couple other ways to determine the key. Let's say for some reason you're playing by yourself or someone won't tell you the key. Another thing you can do is look at the capo positions of other musicians. So if you see the guitars are all capoed up 4 and they're playing out of G, that's where, okay, I can capo up 4 on my banjo and play out a G as well. So that's something you can do, is view where other people are putting their capos and just respond accordingly. Another really good thing you can do to determine the key of the song is determine your vocal range. So let's say I've determined that I can sing from a G to a high G, and this is just for example. So I know that my range is, let's just say it's those 8 notes. So when I'm trying to learn a new song, what I could do is basically see if I can sing the melody of that song, or even hum along. If it's in a range that I can sing, then I know it's going to be close to that key, because it's in the range of the notes that I can sing. If it's way higher than I can sing, or if it's way lower, then I know that it's going to be in a different key. So that's, again, it's not going to give you the exact key, but it's going to help narrow down the search process, and that's what you want to do when you're learning a new song. We want to narrow down our possibilities as quickly as possible. Because if we have to think in, okay, it could be in any of the 12 keys, and it could be minor, it could be major, it could be using any chord, it's going to be super easy to get confused. So we want to narrow things down as quickly as possible. And that's a good way, is figuring out, okay, is this song within my vocal range? And that's going to immediately narrow it down to where you can sing and where you can. That's a very easy way to determine, at least in a general sense, of where does this sit in what key, basically. So that's the first thing I would do when I'm learning any new song, is try and figure out what key it's in and the count of the song. Because once I figured out that, again, I can hang on my home chord either with strums or pinches, or I can drop out completely. As long as I know the home key, I'm going to be more or less safe, okay? So after I determine that, if I have more time to dive into the song, I'm going to try and figure out the basic chords to the song. So when I'm playing bluegrass or folk music, I'm going to immediately narrow it down to 4 chords in the key. The 1, the 4, the 5, and the 6 minor. So those are the numbers of notes in a scale, and they correspond to chords. And the 1, 4, and 5, and 6 minor, those 4 chords are the most popular chords in any key, at least when you're playing bluegrass. So again, 90-95% of the songs are going to use those 4 basic chords. So again, it's not always going to give you the exact chords, but it's going to help you narrow down your search so you can start figuring out the chords right away. So if I narrow my search down to those 4 chords, I'm going to have a lot easier time figuring out the chords. So in the key of G, our 1 is G, so that's the key the song is in. Our 1 is always G when we're in the key of G. Our 4 chord is C, our 5 is D, and our 6 minor is E minor. And what I'd recommend for that key is just remembering them: G, C, D, and E minor. And so those would be the first 4 chords I would go to when I'm trying to learn any new song, is I would see where do those chords fit in. If I hear one that sounds way out of place, I might eventually expand my search outside of those 4 chords, but that's where I'm going to start, okay? And I'd recommend learning the 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor in as many keys as you can, but I would start with G, C, and D. So if you learn those 3 keys and the 4 chords in each of those 3 keys, with using your capo, you'd be able to play in any of the 12 keys and be very comfortable. So again, in G, the 1 is G, the 4 is C, 5 is D, and 6 is E minor. Let me do the other 2 so you've got them. So in C, our 1 chord is C, our 4 chord is F, our 5 is G, and our 6 minor is A minor. So those are the 4 chords that you're most commonly going to find when the song's in the key of C. And lastly, in the key of D, our 1 is D, our 4 is G, our 5 is A, and our 6 minor is B minor. So I would just recommend memorizing those, and I would start with G, but then I would try and memorize those 3 keys. Because, again, when you're learning a new song, you've determined, okay, it's in the key of G. I'm going to immediately narrow down my search to those 4 chords and see if I can make those chords work first. They're going to be the most common chords used. I might just start with strumming. I might not even do any rolls yet. I might just see if I can figure out how those chords sound and fit in. Another thing you can do is try and listen for major chords versus minor chords. So major chords are happy, minor chords are spooky. So it sounds very simple, but most people can tell the difference between spooky and happy. So that's something you can start thinking about, again, whether you're listening to music in your car or you're at a jam session. Start thinking, okay, are there any spooky chords in this song? That would be minor chords. And if it's all happy sounding chords, it might just be the 1, 4, and 5. So again, immediately narrow down your search to 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor, and you're going to be able to figure out the chords to a ton of bluegrass songs. Lastly, for step 2 of learning the basic chords, I would learn to recognize guitar chords. So even if you can't play the chords on the guitar, it'd be very valuable to figure out what does a G look like on a guitar? What does a C look like? What does a D? What does an E minor? Again, if you can recognize those chords, you can pull a lot of information from someone else in the jam session that might know the song just by being able to recognize those chords. Those are the first steps to learning any new song. Determine the key of the song and the basic counting, and then see if you can figure out the basic chords and start with the 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor. And again, you can expand outwards from there, but we're going to narrow down our search right away to help us learn the song faster. Okay, let's look at the next step. Alright, so the next step is learning some basic pinches and rolls that will work. So once you've got the key of the song and the basic counting down, you've learned the basic chords, the next step is adding basic pinches and rolls. And remember, you might not ever have time to get to this step. It depends on how much time you have to learn the song. So you always have to remember that. And that's why I'm taking this lesson in a step-by-step process. Because if you've been to a jam session, you might come into a jam in the middle of the song, and you might only get 5 minutes to learn it or less, and you might not even get to learning the basic pinches and rolls. So using this step-by-step process, again, it gives you a way to approach learning a new song, and the more time you have, you can get to these more advanced steps. So all these things are step-by-step. You always want to learn the chords before you start adding pinches and rolls. Once you've learned, I'm going to assume that you've learned the key of the song and now the basic chords. Next thing I would do is add some basic pinches and rolls. So I would start with the big 4 rolls. Forward roll, alternating thumb roll, forward reverse, and pinch. So you could use the reverse roll, but I'd recommend not using that one, especially if you're kind of a beginner. I find that one's a little bit harder to execute properly. It doesn't, the thumb's not keeping the beat as much in that roll comparatively to like the alternating thumb or the pinch where your thumb is playing on the downbeats in a very dominant way. So I would start with what I'm calling the big 4 rolls. Forward roll, alternating thumb, forward reverse roll, and pinch. So again, once you've got the basic chords down, you're using your 1, 4, 5, and 6 minor, I would start adding some basic rolls to those chords. So obviously the simplest way is sticking with one roll the entire time. So in that example I just played, I was using the forward reverse roll the entire time. And again, remember, it's always based on how much time you have to learn the song. So if you're under pressure with time, I would just stick with one roll over and over again. Don't try and change up the roll while you're trying to learn the new chords and learning a new song. Stick with a very basic roll. Once you feel confident that you've got the song down, now I can maybe try some different rolls. Or try adding some pinches. So I'm always building on what I've already done, the key that the song is in and the count and the basic chords. So once I've learned those, or I think I've learned those, I'm going to start adding some basic pinches and rolls. And if you ever get in doubt, again, move back a step and go back to just maybe strumming on the basic chords. You know, you might not have enough time in this instance to learn all the pinches and rolls that work with that song, and that's okay. That's where you might have to say, okay, I need more time to do this, and that's okay. You always want to keep playing the song even if you don't have enough time to learn it. So let's keep moving on. This just gets back to basically your roll vocabulary. So how many rolls do you know? A great thing, what I do is I like to steal rolls from tab leads that I've been playing. So a lot of things you can look at are rolls at the end of a tab. Basically the vamping or the fill that goes back into the backup. Those kind of generic forward sounding rolls sound really good. And this just comes down to how many rolls do you know, what's your roll vocabulary. Build up your vocabulary of rolls. What I also also like to do is have my safety net. For me, it's the pinch. So if I'm ever in doubt and I'm trying to add some new basic pinches and rolls to a song, if I'm ever in doubt, I'll go back to the pinch. I'll kind of recalibrate, and then maybe I'll try and expand out a little bit more and try some more rolls, okay? So next, let's say we've got the basic rolls down. So I've played through my basic song. And I'm doing maybe a forward reverse roll on all of the chords, let's say. So the next level of complexity would be adding some basic licks. So I'd recommend adding the licks first to the home key, so the root chord. So in this case, let's say I'm playing a song with G, C, D, and E minor. And I've learned it now where I'm doing basic pinches and rolls through the song. So my next level of complexity would be adding some basic licks. And to start, I'm only going to add the licks on the G chord. So what's a really common lick? There's the classic Scruggs lick. That's classic. That's a must know. Another one is really good is. There's tons of them. You can steal these from leads that you've been playing. Look at the end of your lead solos that you know, and a lot of times there'll be a little fill lick at the end. Another really good one is. So let's say again, I'm only going to add these at first on the G chords, because that's the easiest chord to add the licks on, is the root chord. So in this case, I'm going to just add the licks on the G. So maybe I'll do. Now I'm going to go to C and just do a basic roll. Now D, I'm going to do a basic roll. E minor, basic roll. G lick. So again, we're trying to narrow our process down, because if you just say add licks to any chords, add licks to all the chords, it's going to be really easy to be overwhelmed. So start small. You need to put yourself in a box, because that's actually going to help you be creative. It's not going to take away from your creativity. It's actually going to help your creativity to kind of make some rules for yourself. You can always break those rules later once you get it down. I'm first going to start by just adding basic licks on my home chord, so my G in this case. Basic roll. Basic roll. And then back to lick. So again, once you've got the basic rolls down, now start adding some basic licks, okay? So what's the next step after that? So when you're just playing licks, or that's not really playing a lead or playing the solo, those are just licks, right? So no one's going to be able to tell you're playing Will the Circle Be Unbroken or whatever song it is if you're just playing licks. So the next level of complexity would be hinting at the melody. So let's say you're just learning a new song and you don't know the melody to it, but one thing you can start thinking about is, how can I hint at the melody? So one thing you can kind of think about is, just in very general terms, does the melody start high, so high notes, or does it start low? Just in a general sense, start thinking, does the melody start high and then go low, or go low and start high? What I mean by hinting at the melody is, if you can find kind of the note that it starts on, you can go off script a little bit after that, but if you hint at the melody at the beginning, it'll give your break more connection to the song. So let's say the song I'm learning is, just for an example, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, and I don't know the song. And the song's going around in the jam session, and I see everyone's taking a solo on it. So what I might start with is, okay, does the song start really high? No, not in this case. I don't think so. I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say, I think it starts a little bit lower. I think it starts on that note. So maybe I'm going to go for my solo. It gets to my solo, and again, I'm taking a solo off the cuff. I might start with... And now whatever I do after that. So I went off script after that. That's not Will the Circle Be Unbroken. But I started with a phrase that hinted at that melody. So you still get a little bit of the flavor, and again, it's not the full melody, but it's better than nothing. Compare that to, what if I just started up high? Then you don't really hear Will the Circle Be Unbroken at all. This is just a process of, if you're learning the song for the first time, so you don't have time to figure out the whole melody, depending on where you're at with your ear training. Think in general terms. Does it start low and go high? Does it start high and go low? The other thing you can think about is, what other songs does this new song sound like? So if it sounds kind of like 9 Pound Hammer or Man of Constant Sorrow or whatever it is, even if it's roughly, vaguely like that, that'll give you a process to start, a spot to look. Let's say you have a break for 9 Pound Hammer and you're learning a new song. You say, hey, those two kind of start alike. Now I can play my intro to 9 Pound Hammer. And again, I can go off script after that if I don't know what to do after that. But hinting at the melody initially can be huge in just giving the listener a little bit of the melody, and then you can go off script after that, rather than taking a complete off-the-cuff solo. So lastly, another way you can do that is just by, remember your chord tones. So if we take our movable G chord, so those are the chord tones in the key of G. Those are the notes that actually make up the chord of the key of G. So there's 3 notes, G, B, and D, and then a high G. You don't have to remember those necessarily, but basically we have 3 notes that our melody is likely going to start on. It's either going to start on a G, start on a B, or start on a D. So if you even just remembered those 3 positions and you were in the key of G, and you just took a totally educated guess, you at least have a 33% chance, so a 1/3 chance of being right, of playing the melody. So that's not actually that bad. So thinking of those chord tones and those positions can, again, you can take an educated guess, and again, you're going to have a fairly decent chance of actually being right and starting the kickoff in the right spot. So that's another thing I would think about, is think about what songs this new song sounds like, and then use your chord tones to basically play into that. And then you can go off script after that. And lastly, the final, most complex way to learn a new song, and this is kind of the ending point, the end-all be-all, would be playing the complete melody with rhythm. And that's obviously going to be the most difficult, and I wouldn't really expect you to be able to do this just off the cuff. But basically, this goes back to taking songs that you already know and connecting this new song to songs that you already know. The more licks, the more melodic vocabulary you have, the quicker you're going to be able to do this. And the best way to be able to play a complete melody with rhythm on a song that you've just learned is to practice it a ton. So you're not just going to be able to go to a jam and just hear the whole melody and the rhythm, without doing it 1,000 times. So what I recommend to people is be a little selfish when you go to a jam session. Take a break on a song you've never heard. Unless it's some sort of audition jam session where you're, auditioning to be in a band or something, or you've stumbled into a band rehearsal, what I recommend is be a little selfish in that jam session and take a break on every song, whether you know it or not. The more uncomfortable you feel in the jam session taking that solo, that probably means it's a very good indicator that you're in a stage where you're going to be learning a ton. And that's the best way to really learn how to play new songs, is to take tons of solos on songs you've never heard. Another good way to do this that's a little less intimidating is to play along with YouTube videos. So you can play along with YouTube and try and take a solo that way. Again, you're not expected to get this all right away, but if you've had enough time to process the song, this is where trying to figure out the complete melody is going to be the end-all be-all. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, you're basically just playing banjo licks on top of chord changes. And that can be really cool, but it's not going to give each song its own unique kind of personality, where playing the melody of the song will do that. Again, take these step by step, because you're not always going to have enough time to get to complete melody. So it's not realistic to be able to start by learning the complete melody. So take these step by step, because then you're going to actually have a process to get to playing the complete melody, which is the ultimate goal. Best thing you can do is go to a lot of jam sessions, take lots of solos on songs you don't know, and that's going to be the best way to learn new songs quickly. All right, hopefully this helps you out. All right, good luck.